Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. This is the second of a three-part series where I'm covering my top 25 favorite movies of all time. So if you recall, in the first video I covered my favorite films from the 1920s to the 1960s. And in this video I'm covering my favorite films from the 70s and 80s. So let's jump right, well actually before we jump right into it, I need to do a quick change, just hold on. Yeah, so this will work a little bit better. This is fall, by the way. The calendar just changed to the fall, so we need to be appropriate for it. So anyway, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so the first film from the 70s and 80s is a film from 1971, and that's Clint Eastwood directed Play Misty for Me. So Clint Eastwood directed this film, he also starred in this movie, and this is one of my absolute favorite films ever. Fantastic film starring Clint Eastwood as Dave Garber. He is a Northern California disc jockey. Every night in his radio show, a woman calls in and she asks him to play Misty for me. And so eventually this woman, who ends up being a stalker, a psychopath, finds a way to meet Clint Eastwood's character, Dave Garber, and they develop a relationship. He eventually finds out she's a little bit weird, a little bit psycho, tries to break things off, and you know, from there things get really crazy. It's one of those psychological, sexual, stalker type thrillers that really serves as a precursor to so many films such as Fatal Attraction, Obsessed, more recently starring Idris Elba and Beyonce, and so many films that you see on the Lifetime Movie Network and other channels. They get their cues from this movie from 1971. This is a great film, and this film also includes a full jazz concert from the Monterey Film Festival. So it's one of my favorite movies ever, Play Misty for Me for 1971. Now this next film is from 1971 as well, and this one is directed by Monty Hellman. It's Lane Blacktop, and this is a movie that stars James Taylor, the singer, in his only acting role. So he's playing the driver. So Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys plays the mechanic, Laurie Bird plays the girl, and Warren Oates, the legendary Warren Oates, the one and only, he plays GTO. And this is a fantastic, incredible road movie. If you like movies about the American road, this is a great pickup to consider. This movie, from a plot standpoint, is very simple. The characters are very simply presented. There's basically no backstory. It is presenting these characters in the here and now as they are driving across country to who knows where. And they're making their way from the West Coast to the East Coast. The main plot line comes down to James Taylor and Dennis Wilson's character. They run into the girl. They eventually run into GTO at a gas station. They challenge each other to a race to Washington, D.C., and the prize is they get to win the other car. So they are really racing for pink slips. So this film is so simplistic in its presentation of its characters and its plot. It's just showing these characters literally in the here and now. So one of the really interesting aspects of this movie is the relationship that James Taylor's driver's character has with Dennis Wilson. It's almost like they're brothers, if you would, in arms, in their sort of symbiotic relationship with the car. That Dennis Wilson's character, he's the mechanic, and he's really in tune with everything that's going on in the car, just fine-tuning his performance to get the peak maximum performance out of this bad boy. So he's always working under the hood as they're stopping at different places. James Taylor is attuned to his driving skills. He's literally one with the machine as he's driving the car. And their relationship, when they meet the girl, Laurie Bird, brings another dynamic to the story and the way that she relates to them as well, and ends up kind of connecting with both of them throughout the story, as well as Warren Oates' character. But it's just an interesting dynamic, the interplay between the characters and their relationship with the car, their relationship with GTO, how they're racing GTO, but then they're also helping him out along the way. There's so much going on in this story that's presented very simply, but there's a lot of depth that's underlying what appears to be a very simple plot. So I can't recommend this film enough. This is the Criterion Collection edition of it. It's spine number 414, and it came out, I think, 2012 or 2013, but this is a fantastic release that I simply cannot recommend enough. To Lane Blacktop. All right, so my last film from the 70s is a film that is one of my top favorite superhero movies of all time. This will be a separate video. So this is 1978 Superman the movie. This is one of the truly great superhero movies of all time. This movie literally spawned the superhero genre, and all the superhero movies that have come since really owe a debt to this film. This film started everything. And the chemistry between Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder in this film, playing Clark Kent and Lois Lane and Superman and Lois Lane, is legendary. It's never been equaled. I've seen more recent Superman movies, and they just don't hit the mark in terms of the raw chemistry that was displayed by Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder in these early Superman movies. Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor was amazing in this film, and this is just truly a great entertaining film from 1978. When it came out, the tagline was, "You will believe a man can fly." If you watch it today, obviously, you know, special effects wise, it's not going to hold up to today's standards, but the charm of this film is what carries the day. One of the things that really makes this movie stand apart from not only superhero films, but all other movies is its iconic theme song. I mean, even people who've never seen this actual movie, when you hear the Superman theme, you automatically know what it pertains to. It pertains to Superman, right? Even if you've never seen this movie, it's that iconic. So this is one of the great superhero movies of all time, one of my favorite films of all time, starring Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder in fantastic roles. Superman the movie from 1978. Okay, so that's 3 films from the 1970s. Now I got 3 films from the 1980s to show you. The first being one of the legendary films of all time. I just covered one of my top favorite superhero films of all time. This is one of the top sci-fi films of all time, and that's 1980's Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Now, when this first came out in theaters, it was simply known as Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Now it's known as Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back. And this is a fantastic science fiction movie. Of course, George Lucas's vision for this incredible universe from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, or a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. This movie stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher in their timeless roles as Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia. And of course, you got Darth Vader in here, and the great reveal in this movie. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but this is truly a great film. It's probably the greatest of all the Star Wars movies. Now you'll notice that this is a DVD. I actually have this in DVD. I have not upgraded my legacy Star Wars films or my original Star Wars trilogy films to Blu-ray yet. I still have all these on DVD. Eventually I'll probably get this on 4K. This is definitely the one to get on 4K. This is a fantastic film, The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, George Lucas. All right, so the next film is from 1981, and it's Brian De Palma's Blowout. This is a 1981 film starring John Travolta, Nancy Allen, and John Lithgow. And John Travolta, in what I think is one of his best roles besides Pulp Fiction, he plays a movie sound effects man, and he's out gathering sound with his equipment for a production he's working on. And in the midst of gathering that sound, he captures a political assassination. Basically, it's a car coming along the bank of the river, and someone shoots and blows the tire out of the car, and the car crashes in the river. So John Travolta's character records the sound of the blowout of that tire, and he jumps in the river and saves the life of this woman. Of course, the other passenger is a senator who was running for president at the time and was heavily leading in the polls against the sitting president, which is why he was assassinated. But basically, John Travolta saves Nancy Allen's character. Nancy Allen and him get caught up in this whole mess with this assassination, and the people behind it now having to cover up for what they've done. But what I love about this film is similar to my discussion on Singing in the Rain in the first video in this series, is this film does a great job of covering the movie making process of bringing together sound and video and creating movies. This movie showcases that process with John Travolta's character. And what I love about this, I love this cover of this film, how it shows him with all of his equipment. And that's one of the things that is great about this movie. It's from 1981, so you see John Travolta's sound effects equipment that is, 40 years ago, so it's antiquated by today's standards. But you can see his process of how he brings together different reels of audio, how he combines it with, video clips or takes pictures and makes moving pictures with it, syncs up the sound with it. So that whole process of watching him put the pieces together as he's solving this mystery is really fascinating and one of the fun parts of watching this film. This is the Criterion Collection edition of the movie. It's Spine 562, and I can't recommend it enough. It's got some really nice special features on here, and again, this is one of John Travolta's best roles. It's a Brian De Palma film, and it's from 1981. Blowout. Highly recommend. Last but not least, for 1980, this is absolutely one of my favorite films of all time, with characters that are absolutely unforgettable, such as Celie, Mr., Sophia, Nettie, Suge. I'm talking about none other than 1985's film directed by Steven Spielberg, The Color Purple, starring so many wonderful, memorable characters, but this is Whoopi Goldberg's introduction into cinema. You have Danny Glover, you have Margaret Avery, Ray Donald Chong, Adolph Caesar, and introducing Whoopi Goldberg in a legendary film by Steven Spielberg, The Color Purple. This is America in the 1930s, and of course, there's obviously a lot of racial oppression during that time. This movie follows the story of a black family from the 1930s and here in America in the South. The dynamics between Celie and Mr. and everyone in this film is just a sight to behold. If you were to ask probably 100 Steven Spielberg fans, what is Steven Spielberg's best film he's ever directed, you're gonna get a variety of answers. Probably the predominant answers are gonna be one of three films: E.T., Saving Private Ryan, or Schindler's List. And all of those are absolutely amazing films, and I wouldn't fault anyone for saying that, right? If you ask me, I think this might be his best film ever. And he's made some amazing films, but The Color Purple is probably one of his most heartfelt films. Those other films are amazing as well, but it's just a testament to how amazing a director he is, and he's made so many incredible movies. But this one here from 1985, starring this incredible cast, is truly one of the great movies ever, which shows the story of a black family in the 1930s and their trials and tribulations, the dynamics between Celie and Mr. and his abuse of her, and just how Celie's character comes full circle, and seeing the evolution of Whoopi Goldberg in this movie, transforming from where she was in the early days of her coming into herself to where she became at the end of this movie, and how she overcame all of the oppression, not only of being a black woman in the South in the 1930s and the struggle that entailed, but the struggle of being oppressed by her husband, Mr. Danny Glover's character. It's truly a coming-of-age story unlike any other, and part of the reason why it's one of my favorite films of all time. Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple from 1985, starring Danny Glover, Whoopi Goldberg, Adolph Caesar, and Margaret Avery. Margaret Avery, Ray Don Chong, and many others. And Oprah Winfrey's in this film as well. So what can I say? Incredible film. If you haven't seen it, check it out, The Color Purple. All right, so there you have it. Those are my favorite films from the 1970s and 1980s. Hope you enjoyed that. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do any of these movies make your top favorite list? Have you seen any of these films? What do you think about these movies? Do you have any movies on your list from the 70s and 80s that I haven't covered? Let me know in the comments below. So in the next video, we'll cover my favorite films from the 1990s to current day. So until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.